Welcome to English Storytime. Today, we have a touching story to help you practice your listening skills. If you enjoy the story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. It was a chilly autumn morning in a small town in New England. The leaves had turned vibrant shades of red and orange, painting the streets with the colors of fall. Sarah, a young woman in her early 20s, was cleaning out the attic of her family home. Her father had passed away a year ago, and the memories still lingered in every corner of the house. As she rummaged through old boxes, she stumbled upon a dusty pair of brown leather shoes. They looked worn but well-loved, with creases in the leather that told stories of years gone by. Sarah sat down on the wooden floor, holding the shoes in her hands. They were her father's favorite pair, the ones he wore to every important event. She could almost see him standing there, smiling with his gentle eyes, as he always did when he wore those shoes. The shoes were slightly scuffed, the laces frayed, but they held a special place in her heart. Dad loved these shoes, she whispered to herself, a bittersweet smile forming on her lips. Her younger brother, Tom, appeared at the top of the attic stairs. "What did you find?" he asked, peering around the dusty room. "Dad's shoes," Sarah replied softly, holding them up for him to see. Tom came closer, his expression softening as he looked at them. "I remember he wore those when he taught me how to ride a bike," he said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "And when he took us to the fair every summer," Sarah added, her mind flooding with images of laughter and cotton candy. They sat together in silence for a moment, both lost in their memories. The shoes seemed to hold the essence of their father, as if he was still with them in some small way. "What should we do with them?" Tom asked, breaking the silence. Sarah thought for a moment, then said, "Let's keep them. They remind us of him, of the good times." Tom nodded in agreement. "Yeah, I think he'd like that." As they carefully placed the shoes back in the box, Sarah felt a sense of peace. The shoes were a connection to their father, a reminder of the love and joy he brought into their lives. And even though he was gone, his memory lived on, carried by the shoes he left behind. As Sarah held her father's shoes, memories of her childhood began to flood back, vivid and full of life. She remembered running through the fields behind their house, her small hand held tightly in her father's. It was a warm summer day, and she could hear the distant hum of bees and the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Her father, always wearing those brown leather shoes, would lift her up onto his shoulders, making her feel like she was flying. "Higher, Daddy, higher," she would giggle, her laughter echoing through the open fields. He would spin around, both of them laughing until they were dizzy and breathless. Those moments felt like magic, and the world seemed so big and full of possibilities. Sarah could also recall rainy afternoons, when the two of them would sit by the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. Her father would tell her stories, his voice calm and comforting, as they sipped hot chocolate together. "You know, Sarah," he'd say, "every raindrop has a story, just like us." She'd nod, captivated by his words, feeling safe and loved. One winter, when snow blanketed the town, her father took her and Tom to the park at the end of their street. The snow crunched under their boots as they built a lopsided snowman, their cheeks rosy from the cold. Her father, in his brown shoes, helped them find the perfect sticks for arms and a carrot for the nose. They named the snowman Frosty, and for a moment, the world felt like a winter wonderland. Those were the best days, weren't they? Tom's voice brought her back to the present. "Yeah, they really were," Sarah replied with a smile, the warmth of those memories still lingering in her heart. Even now, sitting in the dusty attic, she could feel the love and joy of those days. Her father's shoes were more than just old leather and laces. They were a gateway to a past filled with happiness, laughter, and the unbreakable bond of family. And in those memories, her father was still very much alive, a part of their everyday lives in ways that truly mattered. The warmth of childhood memories was suddenly overshadowed by a more somber recollection. Sarah could clearly remember the day when everything changed. A day that started like any other but ended with a stormy family conflict. It was a cool spring afternoon, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. Sarah was in the kitchen, helping her mother prepare dinner, when her father walked in, his face unusually tense. He sat at the table, his brown shoes tapping lightly on the wooden floor. "We need to talk," he said, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. Her mother looked up, concern knitting her brows. "What is it, John?" she asked, putting down the spoon she was holding. He hesitated, glancing at Sarah and Tom, who were now both watching him. "Maybe it's best if we discuss this later," he suggested, but Sarah's mother shook her head. "No, they should hear this too," she insisted. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, sensing the gravity of the moment. Her father took a deep breath. "I've been offered a job. It's a great opportunity, but it's in another city," he explained, his eyes full of conflict. The room fell silent. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall. "We can't just leave," her mother said softly, a hint of sadness in her voice. "Our life is here, John." Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The thought of leaving her friends, her school, everything she knew, was terrifying. "But it's a chance for a better life," her father argued, his voice rising slightly. "I'm doing this for us. For our future." The conversation turned into a heated discussion, voices echoing through the small kitchen. Sarah and Tom exchanged worried glances, feeling the tension grow like a storm gathering strength. Her father stood up, frustration etched on his face. "I need some air," he said, walking out the door, his footsteps echoing on the porch. The argument left a mark on their family, a wound that never truly healed. Sarah watched her father leave, the image of his brown shoes disappearing down the path still vivid in her memory. It was the beginning of a difficult time, one that would test their family bonds and change their lives forever. Even now, thinking back to that day, Sarah felt a pang of sadness mixed with understanding, realizing that sometimes life's choices are not as simple as they seem. The day of her father's departure was etched in Sarah's memory like a scene from a movie, one she wished she could rewrite. The morning was unusually quiet, the air thick with unspoken words and emotions. The family gathered in the living room, the mood somber as they prepared to say goodbye. Her father stood near the doorway, his suitcase by his side, the same brown shoes on his feet that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Sarah watched him closely, trying to memorize every detail, knowing that soon he would be gone. "I wish things were different," her mother said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her father nodded, his eyes full of regret and determination. "I know," he replied, reaching out to hold her hand. "But this is something I need to do." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to say something, to make him stay, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she stood silently, feeling the sting of tears she refused to shed. Tom, younger and more vocal, stepped forward. "Will you come back?" he asked, his voice tinged with the innocence of a child who believed in promises. Their father knelt down to meet Tom's gaze, his expression softening. "Of course," he promised, ruffling Tom's hair. "This isn't goodbye forever, just for now." The words offered little comfort, but they were all they had. Sarah's mother embraced him tightly, as if trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. "Take care of each other," he said, looking at Sarah and Tom with a mixture of pride and sorrow. The moment felt surreal, like time had slowed down. capturing the essence of their goodbye. As he stepped out the door, Sarah followed him to the porch. The morning sun cast long shadows on the ground, and she watched as he walked down the familiar path, his shoes tapping softly on the pavement. "I love you," she called out, her voice carrying across the still morning air. He turned back, a gentle smile on his lips. "I love you too," he replied, waving one last time before disappearing around the corner. The sound of his footsteps faded, leaving behind a silence that felt both heavy and empty. The house felt different without him, and Sarah knew that things would never be quite the same. But deep down, she held on to the hope that one day, he would return, and their family would be whole again. Until then, she had to learn to navigate the world without him, holding on to the memories and the promise of his love. Years passed, and life continued its steady march forward. Yet, the absence of her father left an indelible mark on Sarah's heart. She often found herself wondering about him, about the choices he made and the life he was leading far away. The need for closure became a quiet companion in her thoughts, urging her to seek understanding and perhaps forgiveness. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Sarah decided she needed to confront the past. She was now living in Boston, studying at a university, but the memories of her father were never far from her mind. She sat in a small coffee shop, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the chatter of students around her. Her decision was made. She would reach out to him and try to understand his side of the story. With a deep breath, she pulled out her phone and dialed the number she had memorized but rarely dared to use. The line rang a few times before she heard his voice. Older but still familiar. "Hello," he answered, a hint of surprise in his tone. "Hi, Dad," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. There was a pause, and she could almost hear the gears turning in his mind as he processed her call. "Sarah," he finally replied, his voice softening. "It's good to hear from you." They arranged to meet the following weekend at a small park in the city where the leaves were turning golden and the air was crisp with the promise of winter. When the day arrived, Sarah felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. She spotted him sitting on a bench, looking out at the pond. As she approached, he stood up, those same brown shoes on his feet, a symbol of the past and the journey they had both taken. "I'm glad you came," he said warmly, offering a tentative smile. Sarah nodded, sitting beside him, the bench creaking slightly under their weight. "I needed to understand," she admitted, searching his eyes for answers. Her father sighed, a deep, weary sound. "I know I hurt you," he began, his gaze fixed on the pond. "I thought leaving was the best way to provide for you, to give you a better chance." They talked for hours, words flowing between them like a river, carrying years of unspoken feelings. He shared stories of his life, the challenges and regrets, and Sarah listened, her heart slowly untangling the knots of resentment and confusion. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with sincerity. Her father reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm proud of you," he said, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. As they parted ways, Sarah felt lighter, as if she had finally laid down a burden she had been carrying for too long. She walked home through the city streets, the evening air cool on her face, knowing that while the past could not be changed, the future held the promise of healing and new beginnings. A few weeks after meeting her father, Sarah was back at her family home, sorting through boxes in the attic once more. The air was filled with dust and the scent of old memories. As she sifted through the remnants of the past, she stumbled upon a small, weathered envelope tucked inside one of the boxes. Her name was written on it in her father's familiar handwriting. With a sense of anticipation, Sarah carefully opened the envelope, revealing a letter written years ago. The paper was slightly yellowed, the ink a little faded, but the words were clear and strong. Dear Sarah, it began. If you are reading this, it means I have found the courage to let you see a part of me I kept hidden for too long. Her heart beat faster as she continued to read. In the letter, her father poured out his heart, sharing the dreams he had for her and Tom, the fears that had driven him to make difficult choices, and the love that had always been at the core of his actions. Leaving was never easy, he wrote, but I believed it was the only way to ensure you had the opportunities I never did. He described the nights he spent thinking about them, the guilt that haunted him, and the hope that one day they would understand the depth of his love. I may not have been there every day, but please know that you and Tom were always in my thoughts and in my heart. He confessed. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she read his heartfelt words. Feeling the sincerity and vulnerability in every line, the letter was a window into her father's soul, revealing the man behind the decisions that had shaped their lives. I hope you can forgive me, he concluded, and find it in your heart to remember the good times we shared. I love you more than words can express. As Sarah folded the letter back into its envelope, she felt a profound sense of connection to her father. The letter was a gift from the past, offering clarity and understanding. It was as if her father had reached across time to bridge the gap between them, mending the broken pieces of their relationship. With a deep breath, Sarah placed the letter in a special box where she kept her most cherished memories. The words would stay with her, a reminder of the complexities of love and the power of forgiveness. As she looked around the attic, she realized that the journey to understanding her father had brought her a newfound sense of peace. It was a peace that came from knowing that even in absence, love could find a way to endure and heal. The journey towards forgiveness was not a straight path, but Sarah found herself gradually moving towards it, carrying the letter from her father like a compass guiding her heart. The words he had written helped untangle the web of emotions that had ensnared her for so long. On a bright Sunday morning, Sarah sat in her favorite spot in the park, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees. She watched families and couples stroll by, laughter and chatter mingling with the sounds of nature. It was a scene full of life and promise, a reflection of the world she was ready to embrace anew. With the letter in her hand, she thought about her father and the man he had been. Both flawed and loving, she realized that forgiveness was not just about absolving him of his mistakes, but also freeing herself from the lingering shadows of resentment. Her phone buzzed softly, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Tom, asking if she was free for a coffee. Smiling, Sarah replied that she would meet him at their usual place, a cozy little shop on the corner of Main Street. As she made her way there, she felt a lightness in her step, a sense of liberation that came from letting go and choosing to move forward. Meeting with Tom, she shared her thoughts, her newfound understanding of their father's choices. I think it's time we let the past be the past, she said, her voice steady. Tom nodded, his expression thoughtful. I agree. It's what Dad would want for us, he replied, his eyes reflecting a shared sense of peace. Together, they toasted their coffee cups, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had both traveled. The conversation flowed easily, filled with hopes for the future and memories of the past, now seen through a lens of compassion and acceptance. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the city, Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude. The path to forgiveness had not been easy, but it had opened her heart to healing and love. The shoes her father left behind were more than a simple memento. They were a reminder of resilience, of the bond that connected them beyond time and distance. Walking home, Sarah felt a quiet joy, knowing that she was finally at peace with her past. Her father's love, once a source of pain, had transformed into a guiding light, illuminating her path forward. It was a journey she had taken alone but ended with a renewed connection to family and a future filled with possibilities. And in that moment, she knew that she had truly moved on, carrying the lessons of love and forgiveness with her, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Did you follow Sarah's journey towards forgiveness? What part of the story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please give us a like and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.